Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to you all. My name is Tom Parr. You can catch me on Instagram on Tom_Parr or TikTok on _Tom Parr. And this is the International Association of Woodcarving with a penknife.
All right. Thank you all for joining us today. Welcome to the International Association of Woodcarvers. Today's the 23rd of November, a little bit after 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I appreciate you all taking time out of this Saturday before Thanksgiving in the U.S. To come in and join us today. Today we have a special guest with us. Tom Parr is going to be coming to us from the UK. It's about 8 o'clock at night there, so he's reminding us while we meet at 3 in the afternoon so that people from other parts of the world are able to come on and participate and join and present. So we appreciate Tom coming in today. I want to tell you what we have coming up as far as our schedule goes. Next weekend, we'll have Chris Brickle in. He's going to be telling us about his carving journey, which includes a car accident, a lot of things that have happened to him and what carving's meant to him. So I look forward to hearing from him. We're going to be off on December the 7th. I'm going to be teaching a class down in North Carolina, the 7th and 8th. So I won't be around. So we're not going to have a meeting that weekend. On the 14th of December, Jim Feathers is going to come in. Jim's been on with us many times before. A lot of times he's here with us. He'll come on and do a demonstration. So we look forward to having Jim back on. And then on the 21st of December, we'll have Jim Heiser on. And that'll round out the year 2024 for us. That'll be our last meeting for this year. Jim Heiser, the CCA member, he's going to be doing a demonstration too. Look forward to hearing from Jim and what he has to offer. So quite a few more meetings left through the end of the year. We'll pick back up in January and start having weekly meetings in January. So I look forward to that. And I'll be posting the schedule out on social media so people can see what's coming up. This week, we're going to have Dave Stetson come in as we normally do to do words of wisdom. Hopefully some of you all are in his class and coming out of that class right into our meeting. It's a great class that Dave's been teaching. And Dave, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you for words of wisdom.
Okay, thanks, Blake. Something I talked to my class about today, but I was listening to an interview, an Eric Rhodes interview with a watercolor artist, Thomas Schaller. And they were discussing what do you do when you're in a rut and you don't feel like you're advancing or improving. And it was brought up that we spend too much effort looking outward. We're looking at our materials. We're looking at our teachers. We're looking at everything outside of us. And we need to spend more time looking inward. Not how we carve, but why we carve. Carving isn't just something we do. It's who we are. And more thought into that, and you'll see improvement.
Thank you, Dave. Very well said. Definitely need to look internal and know why we're doing what we're doing. So thank you for that. Tell you a little bit about some classes that are coming up. Dwayne Gosling's going to be doing a Viking class on December the 10th. Ryan Olson's going to be doing a Hunks and Hotties class starting January the 11th. Janet Cordell now has a raccoon with a leaf class that she's going to be doing starting January 6th. And Dale Green's going to be doing a class February 1st on carving shorties, which are miniature type caricatures. He's got some great examples of those out on his website and on Facebook. So a lot of cool classes coming up. If you want to participate in those classes live, you need to reach out to those instructors, get signed up, find out the materials that you need for those classes. They'll make sure you have everything you need to participate. And again, you can go out on Woodcarving Academy, look at the workshops there, and you can see all the things that are coming up. If you want to subscribe there, you can go out and learn through classes that have already been held. You can subscribe 1 month, 3 months, or a year. You can learn at your own pace. You can see everything that the instructor is doing. You can rewind it, pause it, go back, rewatch it, those kind of things. The only thing that the live class gives you is the opportunity to interact with the teacher ask questions, get your questions answered, and ask them to show you new things and get your questions answered. So live classes are really the way to go. But if you can't do that, subscribe to Wood Carving Academy and learn at your own pace. It's great. Having said all that, today we've got with us Tom Parr from the United Kingdom. He's going to be coming on and talking to us about not only his journey, but challenges that he has carving in public in the UK. I think he's going to do a demonstration, talk a little bit about designing his characters and why he does what he does. So, Tom, I want to say again, thank you for agreeing to come on, your willingness to share. I'll go ahead and shut my mouth and turn it over to you. And we look forward to hearing what you have to offer. So thank you, Tom.
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. I'm Tom. Thanks for having me today. Yeah, I guess let's crack straight onto it. So I will flip my camera over so you can just see the sort of things that I make. So I do a lot of work with little miniatures. As you can see, these are extremely small and usually end up in knives and cuts and all sorts of business. So I've been doing this for not very long. I'd say I've been doing this around, I started in February last year. So we're coming up to 2 years in February next year. And this all started, basically, I've always been interested in sort of caricatures and drawing and illustrating. And as my full-time job as a designer, graphic designer, I spent a lot of time staring at a computer screen. So this kind of is my break away from the screen, sort of carving little guys like this, who's got a lovely little butt. So that was sort of why I kicked off my wood carving journey, so to speak. When it comes to sort of designing characters and things, for me, it's sort of I start by just wipe these guys out. I generally start with little doodles and sketches, always in an orange pencil. A guy who on my Instagram a while ago said, "Oh, you should really try sketching in orange." I was like, "Well, why is that? You know, what's the point in that?" But essentially, with orange lead, you can keep your sketching in the background, and it doesn't disrupt when you go over in a darker color. And this also transfers quite nicely over to your wood carvings because you don't, especially with some of these wood carvings, I mean, these aren't sanded or anything, so you don't get the smudge of the lead on there. So with an orange pencil lead, it makes it a lot easier and it sort of blends in with the wood a lot nicer, which is a handy tip. But yeah, so these are hairy blokes. As we're coming up to winter, this is probably one of the characters I'm going to do next. And generally, when I do my character designs, there's usually there's like something that is a main focus. So, for example, this guy, top left, I mean, he's got a massive, great big eye and a moustache, and the body in itself is generally pretty easy. Same with a lot of these little moustache characters, which I've been working on recently. They're simple shapes, but it's the little accents like a moustache or some blue jeans or whatever that really bring the character to life. So if you try when you're designing your characters to sort of have sort of a standout thing, whether that be, I don't know, what have we got on this page? Whether that be a massive mouth, like this guy over here, or some eyes that look in completely different directions, it can really bring your characters to life a bit more. And they kind of make them a little bit more silly, a little bit more light-hearted, which I'd say is generally my style. Everything I generally do is a bit wacky and a bit mad. So I guess onto carving a little bit. In the UK, we have this thing where we can't take locking knives out in public, generally. You can obviously have them in your house and stuff like that. But if I was carving on the go, I've made this little kit. This is on my little carving go kit. So we've got orange pencil for your sketches, some lovely black elastic bands, which I tend to snap every now and then, but they're all good. And then my main carving knife is a Swiss Army knife, believe it or not. So this one I've modified, instead of the sort of bayonet shape your regular pocket knives are, I've sort of filed it down, turned it to a bit of a sharper thing, so I can get into the details on these characters without too much difficulty. And then this tin here is sort of, I mean, I think it's really cool. I don't know if it's just geeky or not. So you've obviously got in the inside little bits of wood and stuff like that. I mean, these generally, I mean, it's you can what get, and this is what like 2 centimeters high. I mean, 2 centimeters high and about I think it's like 5 by 9 on there. And then on the back, what I've done is I've stuck a bit of leather on back, a little stropping, so you sort of get your strop in there pretty easily on the go, which is useful. Right, so as you might have seen just in there, I am going to attempt to carve this little dude out. Again, basing it on big characteristics. So you've got a great big eye in the middle there. You've got a massive moustache, and why not? Let's try and put a little bowler hat on him as well. If we have time, and I can carve this with relatively decent speed, I'll show you this little technique that I use to get the eyes all sort of like a glossy eye. And you use this stuff called, just unwrap this here, which is exploded, which is useful. Bit of bubble wrap attached to it, but this is stuff called Blue Sky. I'm sure you guys can probably get it over in the States. It's just like a nail gel, which is UV activated, so it's all nice and gooey. But essentially, you would paint the area. So, for example, this you'd paint this green with a little black pupil in the middle there, and then you just literally add a blob and let it sort of rise up slowly. And once it's got to the shape you want, you whack it underneath a UV light, which will set it quite nicely. Right. So, as we're at home, I can use this little flex cut pocket jack knife, which is obviously a locking blade. So I can use that, which I tend to use for roughing out characters. I don't know about you guys, but I find roughing out characters not boring, but it's definitely my least enjoyed part of woodcarving. I really like getting down into the good details and sort of attacking the details rather than the bulk of it. So generally when I'm doing my carvings, I tend to work in like squares or rectangles. So if I'm going to attack this, I'll probably chop out these two bits here and leave this like a bit of a blocky area. Chuck out another bit here, which would be another sort of rectangle there. Have this raised up, so that's also a rectangle. And work on blocky shapes, and then you can I generally work from like top to bottom after I've got the rough shape and sort of hack into everything from there. So let's attempt to do this without, and I am open for questions, yes. Let's attempt to do this without chopping any hands and fingers off. And let's go into it. If you guys have got any questions, just throw them my way. Probably, as I've been doing this for not a huge amount of time, sort of almost 2 years, there's probably a lot of things that I generally do that might not necessarily be the sort of right practice, but hey ho, everyone does things in their own way, I guess, as long as it's relatively safe.
Hey, Tom, are all your carvings done mostly with a knife only, or do you use gouges also?
Yeah, so they're mostly done with a knife. It depends what sort of details there are. With
Hold on, please. Why are the pants still on you? Because first we had to change your diaper.
So yeah, I've been there changing diapers, but yeah, so generally everything is done by knives. I mean, this thing here is pretty useful. It's got like some gouges on here, which is great when you're on the move. If you can sneak it out without anyone noticing. But yeah, everything is generally knife based. It's quite nice being able to just carve away with just one tool and not have to really rely on anything else. It requires quite a few different techniques. For example, like carving out mouths and eyes. You've generally got to, for example, this eye, you'd go around the outside with a deep line and then obviously hack at it at an angle until you get it to a flat surface. And that's obviously where like having a gouge or something would be way easier. But yeah, generally it's just the one knife, I'd say. Let's tackle this.
Tom, one of the things I noticed on your Instagram page is you use a lot of magnets and do your carvings in pieces. Can you talk about that some?
Yes. Yeah, definitely. So this is like, it's one of these things that I've done recently. I think about you done here. This is a bit of a sidetrack. So this is a little guy called Stuy. He doesn't have a face because I've been animating the face on. I'm currently working on a little short animated video with him in. But obviously, as you can tell, the entrance of this little bottle jar here is a lot smaller than the moustache. So to get that in, that is all connected via a magnet there. And it means that you can do fun stuff like, like this sort of thing. He's got an upside down mustache. Also similar with my little jar characters here. These are all done on magnets, big magnets in there, and obviously this is a metal cap, so it sticks straight on. But it means if you are to do any stop motion or any animation, you can move their heads around and be a lot more fluid with their movement, which is pretty cool. That's a tip that I actually nicked from a guy called Dan Hero. It was Dan Riggett, Dan Hero on Instagram. Sort of similar stuff. I mean, he's the guy that sort of inspired me to do all my drawings and my carvings in the first place. Does some amazing work. If you don't know him, you should definitely check him out on Instagram. Similar sort of Diddy characters, I guess. But yeah, let's try and get some of this rough cut done. I'm very aware that we don't want to be here all day doing stuff. All of a sudden, I'm extremely aware that I don't have any gloves on. I never carve with gloves on, but it's almost having eyes on you is like, I'm definitely going to slice my hands straight open. But let's hope that doesn't happen. You might be able to, if you listen carefully, you might be able to hear my dog snoring in the background. If I haven't started already, how do they get started? I tell you what, I literally, a bit frowned upon, but I bought a wood carving set from Amazon. The wonderful Amazon next day delivery, and it was literally just like a roughing knife and a detail knife, nothing fancy. They were the bluntest things I'd ever seen in my life, and it came with 2 basswood blocks. And I just sort of went for it. I thought, you know what, let's see what happens. And obviously, as you can probably imagine, about 10 minutes in, sliced my finger straight open. And I was like, oh, I don't know if I can carry this on. I don't know if this is for me. This hurts. But obviously, I stuck with it. Bought myself a glove. Learned how to do things properly. It's all like sort of self-taught stuff, looking on YouTube at a few bits and techniques. But generally, it was just test it out, see what happens, and hope for the best. I think the first thing I don't have it here with me. It's in my garage. But the first thing I ever made was a pirate boot with a bone sticking out of it, very sort of a zombie-esque. But that was the first thing I tackled, which I was pretty happy about. And then sort of slowly moved into this more character, like little cartoony sort of characters, little beady eyes. Definitely started cheating on those as well. These characters here with the little black eyes, they used to be done the same way as this guy with the big green eye. But it was so fiddly and so just like it went wrong so many times. You end up with nail gel all over your characters, a lot of faff. So now these characters with the little black eyes, again, the wonders of Amazon. Bought some sort of, I think they're used in claymation, like stop motion animations with plasticine or whatever you call them, sort of like Wallace and Gromit, if you know what that is. So those eyes, and that literally is just a case of drilling a little hole and then sticking them in with some super glue or wood glue or whatever. And it gives the same effect, and it's way quicker. As you can see here, I'm just sort of hacking away, trying to keep things in like a sort of a blocky sense. Doesn't have to be too crisp and clean, but I tend to work. It's sort of not extremely symmetrical, but like as you can see with a lot of my characters, they're generally, I mean, unless they're ones that have got big expressions and their arms move and stuff, they're generally sort of the same either side. So it just makes things slightly easier when, especially when you're working on these tiny things to make them the same either side, because one, it takes a lot less time, and you can use the other side of the carving as a reference, which is useful.
Hey, Tom, another question in the chat there. They're wanting to know how you got started. What was the inspiration in starting to carve?
So that was it was hugely down to just stumbling across Dan Hero's Instagram. I really like the idea of making something physical. I do a lot of digital work in my day job, so it was nice to sort of come away from the screen and make something physical. And like I've made a lot of characters for my daughter as well, which goes back to sort of what Dave was saying earlier. It's not the how you make it. Sorry, my wife's currently having a. You're right there. Something that went down the wrong way. So my wife is currently choking on her this fizzy drink. She'll be all right. She'll just die quietly in the other room. But yeah, so it goes back to what Dave was saying about the so what was it sort of not the how but the why. And yeah, it's really nice to sort of, I mean, since she was, I don't know, I'd say like maybe a 1-year-old or something, I made a little bumblebee chew toy, and sort of had to do a bit of research into toy safe, food safe oils and ways of setting like woods and stuff afterwards. But making something for her really sort of it kept me interested in it. So yeah, so I'd say that there's multiple there. It was one, basically trying to do something that wasn't digital, and two, making something for my kids. You can turn this up so you can actually see what I'm doing rather than just see some thumbs. So another thing that sort of wanted to mention as well is sort of social media and how that's influenced the way I do my stuff. There's a lot of pressure on, filming every single thing you do, trying to make sure you capture everything and post it online, make sure you're posting all the time. Generally, I find that like it's just a case of, for me, posting online is, whilst it's nice to get likes and all that sort of stuff, for me, it's generally almost like a little portfolio to myself. So if it wasn't for the likes of Instagram, I wouldn't have known that I'd been doing wood carving for such a long time. Well, since it was like February last year, and it's nice to go back and say, oh, well, what did I post on that day, and what did I make? And it was obviously turns out to be that little boot. But yeah, I do a lot of basswood stuff. Just going on that comment I've just seen pop up. I do basswood stuff because it's generally quick, it's easy to use, nice and soft. You can get a lot of detail in it. But I've literally just stumbled across using mahogany, which is this character here is a mix of like mahogany and basswood, and it's so nice. I mean, it takes a little bit longer to do stuff with, because you've obviously it doesn't go so well with just like a knife finish, because it can split a little bit here and there. But if you get like I don't know, I think I used like a 250 grit or 220 grit sandpaper on this, just to make it a bit smoother. Sand it down and get rid of some of those knife marks. It comes out really nice, and it's great when when you're finishing things with oils. It's so satisfying when you see it sort of that color change from being, it sort of really enriches the wood. Oh, sorry for the sniffles here. We finally got the cold weather in the UK, and everyone's immune systems have just gone to pot. All right, we're almost there with this rough cut, and then we're going to sort of go in blind and probably start taking off some of this illustration on the front. We'll start with the hat and just round that off. All right, here we go. Let's say that's sort of rough cut-ish, I guess. This is very rough cut. I'm trying to work speedily so I don't bore you all. There you go. All right. So then I suppose from the top here, because we're going to have this moustache here is going to come out a little bit. So we're probably looking at the moustache is going to be maybe like this. This is all eyeballing as well. A lot of my stuff is never necessarily like completely measured. Like, I mean, I could come in here and get a ruler out and go, all right, this needs to be like this, or blah. But I think with the nature of wood carving, it's very much just sort of like a bit of a reductive thing, right? You kind of have to go with the flow. And I think is it Bob Ross that was like, oh, it's just a happy little mistake. And you just go with it and see what happens. I think half of the things that I've made weren't necessarily supposed to look the way they did. Like, I mean, this guy, obviously I want him to look like this, but he might not look like this at all by the time we're done. I mean, who knows? I mean, I might end up chopping his hat off completely or whatever. So yeah, so I suppose the next step here is just again more rough cutting, but probably on a more on into the depth rather than just the outside. And I've experimented with using sort of like what do you call it, like a sort of like a bandsaw. I think it's called like a scroll saw, which is like a slim bandsaw, I guess, to cut out the characters first. I think I did that with these ones, these bigger ones, which were I just wanted to get into the detail, like these little fish scales. But so I just wanted to get into that detail section. So I sped the process up. I bought a little scroll saw and did that. But it turns out that it wasn't as powerful as I wanted it to be, and it's just slowly died on me. So I'm back doing teeny tiny things and just trying to rough cut it with a knife, really. And so far, so good.
Hey Tom, do you sell any of your stuff, or do you keep it all for your daughters?
So I've literally just started a website. It literally just went live. I think it went live last night. So I've sold stuff before on Etsy. If I'm selling stuff on Etsy, I mean, it costs a fortune for not only the seller but also the buyer. But yeah, so I've got a website out there. It's tom-par.com. Nice, easy one. And I think all of these guys are on there at the moment. There's a few more on there as well. So if you guys ever want to take a look at that, feel free. I also wanted to sort of start a blog on there at some point in the future. I think I was saying to Blake the other day, there's so much in the pipeline. As I'm sure all of you have the similar sort of thing. You've got all these ideas and things you want to do. It's just having the time to do it. But yeah, that is something that's in the pipeline, along with the usual YouTube channels and everything else. But one day, possibly when I'm retired, I might have time to do all this. So now that I've got this little circle on top, I generally, as I go, I will start sort of refining these shapes, so making this a little rounder, and just trying to make more of the shape as I go. I do this thing at the end of all my carvings where I generally try and go over the whole thing and make these ridiculously tiny little cuts, like this sort of thing, like really small. Better with my Swiss Army knife there, and it's almost to try and mimic. I don't know. I suppose it's like a sanded feel to the little model, but it's just a knife instead. It's quite nice because you get the little texture marks as you would with like a bigger carving. But yeah, and then I mean that's tedious work when you're trying to do things really small and your hands cramp up. But I find working off of like a size like this. I mean, this guy here he's tiny. You can see how small he is. Like, and when you're trying to carve out this tiny little belt here, and you're just holding on with your fingertips, you tend to get cramp every now and then. But it's generally worth it in the long run. You just have to hold on. I mean, I don't know if there's exercises you can do for your fingers, like little bicep curls or something, to make them stronger whilst you're carving tiny things. But it's you get used to it after a little while.
And Tom, are you challenged with finding other tools in the UK besides Flakes Cut, or is there anything more readily available?
There's a few things here and there. I mean, I'll be honest, working with some of the tools available in the UK, they're never as sharp as you want them to be.
I mean, this is FlexCut. I'm sure you guys know these guys, but I spoke to them not too long after I started carving, and I was like, oh, just on the off chance, do you mind sending me some? Just a little cheeky, please send me some. And they were like, yeah, sure, which I was extremely surprised at. And these guys' stuff is insane. Like, it's so sharp, which I obviously found out the hard way by slicing my fingers. But yeah, they're super good. So I'd say, I mean, everything's easy to get hold of online now, so it's not too difficult to get hold of stuff. You just have to be patient and wait for it to turn up. So I'd say there is stuff here in the UK it's useful enough. But like I said, I think these guys are an American company, so shout out to you guys for making decent knives. Right, so the top of the hat done. I'm just going to try and shape these corners out as well.
And as small as that is, I'm guessing you don't use a bandsaw at all to rough any of it out, do you?
No, generally not. I mean, when I'm making bigger stuff, I have done, yeah, like these ones that were here. I've actually got in my garage. I mean, if we got time, I might get it out later. But there's like what was it? Like maybe like a 2-foot Viking totem that I made with an axe. That was pretty mental. Again, I asked a company called Beavercraft Tools if they would send me an axe just on the off chance, and they were like, "Yeah, sure. What are you gonna make of it?" And I was like, "I guess I'm gonna make a Viking." So I made this Viking. It took a long time, sort of about 40 hours, and a lot of mess. But it turned out pretty cool. If you scroll down on my Instagram, I mean, you'll be able to see it on there. So way back. I mean, that was last year that I did that. But that was, for me, going from sort of making these tiny ones to making something that's massive. It was a bit of a task. I mean, one, just having the space to do it all. Like I don't have. I mean, I've got like a little. What do you call it? I can't remember the word. What are they called? A little vise. That's it. I was almost going to do charades then. But yeah, so I've got a little vise that I use to keep some of these small things in when I'm chopping up bits of wood with a little handsaw. But when it's the big stuff, I sort of don't even know where to start with holding things in. I've seen. I don't know if you guys use like they're like sort of. It's almost like a log with spikes on, so you can whack like a big log on to the spikes, and it stays still whilst you're carving away at it. But that's one of those things. Working generally with small stuff, you tend to just in your hands. Doesn't necessarily need too much support unless you're trying to get like a straight saw in or something. Right, well, sort of hat done, I guess. We'll come back to that and make a few more changes to it. So with this moustache here, I'm just going to cut straight across and try and pull this out from the flat bit. So we're cut in, and I'm going to slice over this guy's eyes. Sorry, mate. And then this is where we should sort of start being able to see a bit more of a side profile to this chap. I mean, if you guys want to chuck some names my way, we can decide what this guy's going to be called a bit later as well. We can maybe put it to a vote or something. I'm rubbish at naming these things.
Hey, Tom, we talked a little bit earlier about some of the carvers that we've had on our meetings that's from the UK. I was going to ask you, do you all have any competitions or any kind of clubs or anything around that you can participate in there?
I tell you what, it's one of those things I'd love to do. I've not done enough research into it, but I'm pretty sure they exist. I reached out to Rich Embling the other day after we spoke on Tuesday, Blake, and just sort of said, "Oh, have you got any tips, this, that, and the other?" And it was one of those things I meant to ask and I just forgot. But I'm pretty sure there's some around. I've been to a few sort of, we'd call them like sort of country festival sort of things, where it's like they have like all the local farmers come together, all that sort of stuff, and they've done like the big chainsaw wood carvings, which are awesome. But I mean, if I'm chopping fingers with a little blade, what's that? Oh, there goes Stuy. Yeah, if I'm chopping fingers with a little blade, you're not getting anywhere near a chainsaw. So that sort of exists in the area. But in terms of wood carving stuff, they must exist. Must be around somewhere. So I do need to do a bit of research. Probably just a case of me jumping on Google and finding out. But I think that's it's probably something for next year. Give a crack at that and see how I get on. Right, so here we've got a little bit of a profile there. Probably round off his moustache so it just sort of comes out around to the side of his face. And let's do on the side of it. So talking of not necessarily competitions, but started a thing on Instagram. It's also going to be on TikTok, probably reach out with a few other things. Yeah, I just literally need to Google Wood Show UK. You're right. It's just I just haven't got around to doing it. But yeah, so I've started a thing called Makers Month on Instagram. Literally just at Makers Month. Which the idea behind it is that you sort of get like a monthly theme. There's a lot of character design based illustration challenges, monthly challenges out there. But my plan is to sort of open it up to the wider range of wood carvers and anyone from illustrators to wood carvers to pottery makers, whatever. And the idea is so you set a monthly challenge, so it'll be a theme. So let's say, I mean, December is probably, let's be honest, it's probably going to be a Christmas theme. And the idea is we will just like share stuff. There's no pressure. It's just a case of sharing stuff with the world and what you can do. And just it gives almost a reason to carve, if that makes sense. Like I struggle, like I'm sure most of you probably do, is coming up with ideas of what to carve, and it's almost having just a little prompt to say, oh look, there's some other guys having a crack at this. Let's all carve the similar theme thing and see what people come up with. There's a big illustration one out there called Inktober, if you've heard of it, which I've been involved in plenty of times back when I was doing a lot of illustration. And I just think it's a good thing for the community. I mean, as wood carvers, we're all, everyone's generally really nice, from what I found. So it's this nice little community building challenge, I guess. I mean, I think some of you have probably checked that out. I can see a few follows on there, so thanks for the follows on that. But yeah, we're going to do, this month is currently mustache people. I can't even say it. Mustache people or creatures or whatever. Generally, that is to raise awareness for the Movember charity, which is literally growing a mustache in November, to raise awareness for men's health and I think it's like prostate cancer, testicular cancer, which is it's sort of just raising awareness, and it's just quite a fun little challenge. It's quite fun to make mustache characters. I just gives a lot of personality to a character, and then yeah, I'll probably release the next challenge at the end of this month. If anyone fancies getting involved in that, you can see what we can create. So looking at like trying to make things symmetrical, I look down at the top of models quite a lot, so I can see that I've made this incision here. I know that I'm roughly going to be about there on the other side. Just squeeze that in. And this guy doesn't have any arms, but it's a very similar technique when I'm carving in some arms, is to literally just go bosh, bosh, and then you just carve away at the other side and literally go from being a rectangle to rounding it off, then carving in some hands. Generally, hand-wise, sort of look a bit like this, and like a little triangle in the middle, and then sort of some knuckles and stuff on the side. Try and get a bit more dynamic with my hands every now and then, but again, it's sort of a timing thing, I guess.
Tom, another question in the chat. They're wanting to know, they've looked at your Instagram post, want to know what type of paints or stains that you prefer when you paint, acrylic or oil.
Yeah, so I generally use acrylic, water it down just a little bit. I mean, I'm really not specific with. I think I'm literally there's a little, not an arts and crafts shop. It's just like a stationery shop, I think, down the road. I just bought some generic acrylic paints, which are just available to me. So again, it's nothing fancy. But yeah, I tend to water those down a little bit. I paint with those if I'm using acrylics. A lot of the time, there's a company called Furniture Clinic. I'm not sure if they're available in the US, but they do a lot of wood stains. But they do these tiny little tester pots. They're like this big, which is perfect for painting these little things. So I think this guy here was done with a lot of different hue shades. So that's all wood stain as opposed to acrylics, which just gives you way more, as it would because it's wood stain, but it just gives you way more sort of the texture of the wood in there, which is quite nice. I think. Nobody says head's falling off. Off it goes. But yeah, I think my favorite kind of carvings at the moment are ones that generally don't use any sort of paints. Like this little guy here is the definition in there is done with the wood, which I think is awesome when you can get away with doing that. I tend to do like this guy. I haven't got it, but this guy does actually. Sorry. So I don't know if you can tell there, but there's a different shade between his body and his hair. So the body has just got like a Danish oil on it, and the hair has just got it's a matte. What is it? It's like a matte varnish, so it just sort of doesn't quite catch the light as much, and you get that little different. You get sort of a paler wood, and a darker wood, which is quite a nice different contrast in there. Okay, right. Here we are. I mean, this guy kind of looks like a cactus more than anything in my head for the moment, but we are going to give him a little butt. Sorry if that's a bit painful, but let's carve this out like that. And then one of the bits that I think if anyone's tried to carve legs before is quite tricky is carving in the middle, in between legs is torture. Just hack away at this for a bit, and let's see how his legs end up. You might end up with wide legs or thin legs. Who knows? Okay, we're getting there. We're getting there. Again, I mean, even this. I mean, it's not symmetrical. Like it's kind of a hack it and see what happens. Try and make them as symmetrical as possible, but it's not necessarily. I think it kind of adds a bit more character when they're not symmetrical. Hold on, can any of you hear my dog snoring? He's really going for it.
I was wondering what that was.
Yeah, that's the dog snoring. Hang on. There he is. Little sausage. Snoring his head off. That's the content we're all here for, really, isn't it?
Right.
Right, let's get this leg finished. And then we can move on to sort of details, I guess. How are we doing for time?
We're in good shape. It's 3:45, so we got plenty of time. Cool. Do you have any trouble as far as finding basswood over there? I guess you use limewood mostly.
Say that again, sorry.
Do you have any trouble finding basswood or limewood there?
No, there's quite a few companies out here that supply some decent stuff. I currently use a company called oh God, what's the name? I think they're literally called like English Wood or something like that. But they do a whole range of things from people doing like making bowls and stuff and doing some lathe work to proper live wood and all that sort of stuff. So I'd get my stuff from there. I mean, they've got really good turnaround time on delivery and stuff. So it's pretty easy to get hold of. I mean, like I said, back in the day when I was new to this, it was Amazon for everything with the pretty naff basswood, if I'm honest. But it did the job. It got me into it. And yeah, and then now every now and then I had someone dropped off a big slab of mahogany to me the other day, which I was very grateful for. It's just been like sitting around in their garage. So that's sort of wielding its way into my work every now and then. Like I said, with this guy over here, which I've just currently knocked out. But I've got the English wood supply company that I use. They do sort of like I don't know what you call it. It's almost like a little surprise box of stuff. I'm sure there's other companies that do it as well, but you literally just you pay. I don't know. You pay by the weight. So I think I got. Let's say it was like a couple of kg of wood, maybe like 5-10 kg of wood, and it's maybe 30 quid. And it's you just get offcuts of whatever's left in their shop, so you end up with some really nice stuff. Like I've got some really nice cherry wood in there, and some different varieties. You can modify it so it's only basswood, but yeah, there's some really good stuff in there that I'm looking forward to use, especially if I'm going to keep going down the route of using different woods instead of paints. But yeah, I'd be interested to know what sort of things people prefer to use. Do you prefer to use acrylics or oils or or wood stains? There's a real variety of things out there. Is anyone using like something bizarre like I don't know? No, I'm not going to say what I was going to say. I was going to say some natural. I don't know. What could you use? Like natural dyes and things. I don't know. There's definitely something out there with some which you can experiment with. Right, let's go on to carving butts. So, yeah, I've experimented with watercolors. You get quite a nice sort of like blending as well with watercolors, which is nice. It's a lot softer. Coffee stain. Oh, that's an interesting one. Never used that. I suppose you could also decide on what the how dark it is as well with coffee, right? You could really change it up. Shoe polish. Never even thought of using that, to be honest, but that's actually quite a good idea. I suppose they all sort of generally it's making a distinction between lighter woods and darker woods as well, right? Right. Okay, I'm just hacking away at this guy now. We're getting somewhere. So let's have a look. So we've got his moustache there. The blood of my enemies. I mean, as long as those enemies have been taken down with a carving knife, you carry on. I do not condone the killing of people with carving knives. just to put that out there. Okay, right. So I'm going to switch over to this little thing and just give it a quick strop to make sure it's got some sort of sharpness to it. I use the polish. What is it? I think it's the gold flex cut polish that I've got in there. I mean, a lot of my stuff I've got is from flex cut mainly because they gave it to me, so I sort of know no better. I know there's probably other stuff out there that's a bit more suitable for different things. But I'm a bit naive to not naive. I'm a bit, I don't know what the word is. Just using what I know. Okay, so we're going to round off this hat a little bit. I want to try and somehow, if I can figure out the angle, into some sort of a bowler hat.
How often do you try to carve, Tom? Do you carve every day in the evening, or?
Yeah, so generally it's once everyone's gone to sleep. So it's usually from about 9 o'clock onwards. So we're actually a good, we're 10 minutes before I generally start carving. Um and yeah, it's normally just like everyone's gone to sleep, it's nice and quiet, a bit of me time, chill out, put a bit of nice music on and see where I end up. Um I've just seen that comment there about carving with my kids. I'd love to. I think my daughter's first experience of this knife did not go very well. I did not realize she had it in her hand, and for some reason the blade was out, and obviously we ended in tears. She had a little cut on her finger, bless her. But I'd love to. I mean, I know that Victorinox, which is just Swiss Army knife guys, they do like a my first pocket knife, which I think is like a rounded edge. I mean, I have no idea how good it would be for actually carving, but they might be able to get a bit of rough cutting in. I actually made a little character with my daughter the other day out of a conker, and some skewers. So I mean, I use skewers a lot. If people don't use skewers enough, they're so versatile. I mean, that is just a skewer, just a fancy one. So we used 2 skewers as legs. We carved a little face into the conker, and yeah, she sort of stuck the legs and feet on. So I generally, the things that I make with them are I make the components and then they put it together, which I think is quite a good starting point. But one day we'll bust out some knives and carve some things together. It's just trying to get the confidence up to hand them a knife is a bit of a scary thing. Right, so I'm just going to try and get this little curve in the hat. I'm not sure if that's not too bad. So perks of using tiny little knives, you sort of roll the blade a bit. You can get some nice little curves in there. Again, there's probably people out there cringing at the way I use these knives, but that's what I do. And that's also the perks of these knives, right? These things are like 15 quid. I mean, I don't know what that transfers to in dollars, but they're really cheap to get hold of. And then if you've got something like even just a Dremel or like a rotary power tool thing, you could sort of sharpen them yourself and get some relatively nice looking blades out of them. I mean, this one, if you can see closely, it's pretty scratched to pieces because it does the job, and that's it. You know, it's not like it doesn't have to be in pristine condition all the time. All right, let's that. I'm just going to try and add in some of these tiny cuts. Just smooth this out a bit. Maybe a case of coming back and refining this after. I don't bore you all to death with these miniature cuts that I do at the end. We can get onto some eye making. Cool. So I'm going to get away some of this.
Hey, Tom, on your Instagram post, you do a lot of stop motion stuff. Do you do that just through the Instagram app? If people are interested in trying to do that on their site, is there a better way to do that?
Yeah, there is. I use an app called, I want to say it's called Stop Motion app. I think it's as simple as that on iPhone. But it basically gives you like called onion skins where you can see. So, say for example, I was to do this and then move it like this and move it like this. You can see in live. You can see the positions before, so you know exactly where your character's been. And that's super useful to use. There's a few different things. So the ones I'm doing at the moment, the characters don't have faces because I've been animating them on. And I do that on my iPad with an app called Procreate Dreams. If anyone's fancied doing a bit of animation, I'd highly recommend it. It's pretty intuitive to use, but it's sort of, you know, how the old Disney films were made, like it's all stop motion, frame by frame. You draw on one frame, then you draw on the next frame to change it. And it's essentially that mixed in with stop motion wood carvings, I guess. So it's combining like the technical side of animation with sort of the more physical side of things, which is, I think, is quite a nice blend, which is something that I'm exploring at the moment. And like I say, I'm trying to put together a little short. So if you guys follow me on Instagram and stuff, you'll probably see that pop up at some point in the future. Obviously, it's stop motion, so you need to be incredibly patient. It takes a bit of time, but hopefully it will turn out nicely. Right, let's go at carving out this eye. What I'm going to do is I'm going to draw the eye in first, and then we'll try and scribble, we'll try and carve out from there. And again, with like drawing stuff, that's the good thing about this orange pencil. I mean, I can effectively carve away the area, and I won't have to worry about the orange spreading around. Whereas when I use a normal pencil, I end up with a lot of it on my fingers. It smudges everything. It changes the color of the wood, and it's generally a bit of a pain to use. So I'm going to go in here and do some relatively kind of deep, I guess, sort of cuts. Try and go as circular as I can. And that's definitely a square, but let's see how we go. I'm trying to move the carving as well as the blade to try and get it sort of circular. I mean, I'm not doing a very good job, I'll be honest. Yeah, not horrendous, but certainly not that circular. But it all serves a purpose. And then this is literally a case of going in to the corners and just chiseling away with a knife. Chiseling away with a knife. Can you chisel away with a knife? Chisel away with a chisel. And this doesn't have to be super deep. It's just taking a layer off, so you've almost got a barrier for when we put that gel on in a minute. One of the good things about using this knife is it's not stupidly sharp. So it means I can put I mean, it's sharp to an extent, but it means you can sort of rest if you need to onto your fingers. And I mean, obviously, once you've been carving for a while anyway, you get that hardened skin, so it's not too much of an issue. Come on. Get out of there. I think what I'll do is I'll get this eye in, and then we'll be a case of me finishing the final thing, and you guys will have to keep your eyes peeled for the finished product. But so if anyone is thinking of heading over to my website, these little mustachioed fellows, all the proceeds go to the Movember charity. So obviously, apart from sending it to you guys, everything else goes to charity, which is hopefully, even if it's a tiny bit of money, we can put it to good use. Okay, right. So that is his eye sort of hollowed out. It's a bit gritty, but you know, might add to his character. Thanks for putting that up there, Blake. What I am going to do is I'm not going to do this with acrylic paint because I don't want to have to wait for it to dry. But I will do. Let's find a pen. And to draw people in there and see what I've never actually done one without a color in the iris, but let's see what happens. Just find a pen. I'll be go to my cupboard. Whoa. Yeah. Just going to use a biro pen, nothing special. Let's see if I can just watch. This is when the pen is out of ink and doesn't work. Just gonna keep going around the circles. I think. Let's have a look there. I think this could work quite nicely as well, because even though I've not put a colour in there, if I use one of my Danish oils or something on the rest of the body, what I'd usually do is I would usually do the oil first, any paints and stuff, and then put the iron afterwards. I mean, it's not the end of the world. You know, it'll still work, but and this is the bit where you can all watch me mess it up completely. Yeah, thanks, Mitch. I mean, the idea is, you know, it's one, bringing highlight to the whole men's health scenario, but also, you know, it's just I'm doing these carvings anyway, so if I'm going to make it about something, it's nice to do something for charity every now and then. Makes you feel good, you know, and also it highlights things, you know. Right, so this is a little. You see a lot of these in like clay models, I guess, plasticine models. You can get these on Amazon really cheap. They're just little like ball things, but I find it's useful to use this stuff. So this stuff is called Blue Sky Builder Gel, which is a nail gel. And as you can see, I've it's leaked everywhere. But in theory, it should do the job. Let me just get a blob of this on here, and it's very I mean, look at this. Look at this stuff. It's like super sticky, but it tends to work quite well. It gives a good like 3D eye. So if you get a decent blob on there, once it stops dribbling all over the place. Okay. Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. Imagine this was like cheese on a pizza, you'd be well happy. And then tend to use there's a little tail bit on the end here. Try and blob that in the center. Like this. I'm not sure if this stuff is available in the US, sorry. It's if you Google things like nail builder gel, there's a lot of, as long as it's like a UV setting gel, it should in theory do the same thing. Have I nailed this first time? I think I might have done. I don't want to speak too soon. So basically, this little blob's on there. I'm going to let that just filter out a minute while I just get my UV lamp. But yeah, I mean, this, I'm just looking at the ingredients on the back of this. It's literally just like a, oh God, how do you pronounce that? It's a henna poly. I mean, oh, there we go. Someone's found it on Amazon. Right. Right, let me just get my UV light. Plug this in. And again, I mean, this UV light is just a. Oh, I'm just kicking things around a little bit. So this UV light is just, again, it's like a nail thing. It's just, I mean, you can get these, you can pick these up pretty quick, pretty cheap. I think this was like 10 quid. But it's just, you plug it in and it shows you purple UV light. And this stuff generally doesn't take too long to. My cable is broken, but it should still work. There we go. So this one is like a. Oh, actually, dang that, it's not spread out as much as I wanted it to. Let's just spread that out a bit more first. If you leave these things, they will generally spread out quite nicely. You just tamper with it a little bit. You might actually need a bit more stuff in there just to because I kind of want to get it a bit more raised above the outside, if that makes sense. I can just spread this around a bit. It's very fiddly, this stuff. It's a cool result. I don't know if anyone's tried ever doing like resin eyes or resin work, but I imagine it's very similar to that. Right, come on, let's. Don't know if that's actually worked, but maybe. The name of the gel stuff. It's Blue Sky gel, Blue Sky Builder Gel. And that's of any use. I'm pretty sure there's other brands out there as well, but that's the one that I'm using. Just trying to get this leveled out a bit. Just gonna whack a little bit more on there just so he's a bit more even. Yeah, I mean it's the stuff that I've got. It's got this little flowery thing on it, so that's the logo, I guess. That's helped anyone. Right, second time. Here we go. Let's see if I can not mess this one up. Come on, get on there. Let me move this over here so you can see the fight that I'm currently having with it. And if anyone tries this out, please do tag me if you're Instagram. I'd love to see what people do because it really does give like your characters and stuff just a bit more of a sort of lifelike feeling, I guess. If you're doing little cartoon characters and stuff, sort of gives them a bit of like a googly eye effect, which is quite fun. And there we go. Almost. Ooh. Try and get this off without making any more mess. Yeah. There we go. Right, so I've got a big blob on there now, so that's just let that level out just quickly. Just lid back on. Here we go, right. You can see that in there. I'm just going to whack this underneath this UV light. Put him under there for give him a bit of a tan. I think the little UV lamp I've got here, I think one thing is one click of the button is a minute, and then if you long hold it, it does a 2-minute stint. But it really doesn't take that long to do. The only thing I would say, I mean, this guy, I don't know if you can see on here, it does get a bit foggy over time if you keep them sort of if it gets touched too much, I guess. So if you want it to set hard, set it underneath the UV lamp for a bit longer than a minute. It will set hard regardless, but if you want it to stay crystal clear, that's what I'd recommend. Almost there. Literally like watching paint dry, I guess. Very similar. All right, so that's done. So now that's relatively. I'm not going to touch it. I don't want to jinx it, but so that means that basically this eye is essentially set and it's not going to droop. But you can see you get a nice little 3D effect on there, and it almost gives it like a proper eye thing. And you could really go into detail with this. I mean, if you were to do proper eyes and things like that, you could do a lot of detail in that. I mean, you could get different colors in the irises and all sorts of stuff, and that could look pretty cool. But yeah, I mean, I suppose so. If I was to develop this a bit more, just aware that we don't want to keep you all day, which I will develop this, and you will see this a bit later. I'd probably put some details in the moustache. So I think again, you could use like a V scorp or something like that, but I generally go in sort of like this and just do these little knife cuts and just make it sort of like I guess look at a bit like hair, I guess. Yeah, and you could definitely use glass eyes as well. You know, the glass eye stuff is awesome. I mean, I've seen you just get like pre-made ones, right? And you just make sure that you carve out the area, stick them in, job done. So it really depends. I mean, that's sort of why I transitioned over to the glass the little tiny glass ball eyes was because I kept messing this up so much that I just got fed up and I was like, right, there's got to be a better way of doing this. But yeah, so generally, stuff should be something like that. Go in a bit more detail on there. But yeah, so that's effectively how I do my little carvings. It takes me quite a long time to do little things like this, but that is your basic shape there. I mean, he looks kind of cool. I mean, he could maybe be some sort of, I don't know. I could imagine him being in a cowboy saloon or something. I don't know. Or maybe he's just like the tax man coming to get everyone's taxes. But yeah, if you guys have got suggestions for names, ping them over and we're trying to name this guy. Also, if there's any other questions anyone's got, Hondo. That's a pretty cool name. I've got Honda as well, so maybe that's something there. One-Eye Jack. Oh, I feel like a name with One-Eye Jack. You definitely got a good story there, haven't you? Like how did you become One-Eye Jack? Let's just finish this button and then we'll say this guy's done for now. This is the only downside to doing these little gel eyes, is they become a bit tacky. So if you leave it till the end, and because otherwise you have to be quite careful with where you place your fingers and stuff. So the sleepy dog is called Otis. Otis Redding after Otis Redding. Yeah. So there we go. Let's just go. I'll go and do some more detailed. If you keep an eye out on Instagram, you'll see the finished guy probably either tomorrow or Monday.
All right. Anybody else have any other questions for Tom? Okay, Tom.
Good, I guess. Cool.
I appreciate you coming in and sharing. It's definitely tedious work for sure for some of us who work on larger stuff. I can only imagine working on miniatures like that. And I'm like you, I'd have all my fingers sliced probably in the first sitting, so it wouldn't take long.
I've definitely been there. But yeah, thanks very much for having me. It's been pretty cool. And thanks for your support, guys.
Just want to remind you all, next Saturday we'll have Chris Brickle coming in. Again, be off on December the 7th and then back at it on December the 14th with Jim Feather. So I want to make sure you all, if you have a chance, come in, join us live, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time next Saturday. For everybody in the United States, just want to say happy Thanksgiving to you and your family. I know a lot of people will be away this week, spending time with family. Take advantage of that. And we hope to see you all next Saturday. Thank you again for joining the International Association of Woodcarvers.
No, it's all good.
We will.
Okay,
I'll mute myself here in a second, but man, we will go whenever you're ready, and we can do as many takes as you like. So
he never really mutes himself. Don't let him tell you that. It's more
I know my dog's barking in the background right now, so I'm definitely going to mute myself.
I've got my wife watching Orange Is the New Black in the background. I hope you can't hear it, but
if she wants to come in and be creepy behind you and do that stuff, that's fun too.
Get her involved. I'm sure she'd love that.
She can join you. It's all good. All right, I'm shutting up. So it's up to you whenever.
Cool. Let's give this a go. See how many times I can mess this up. Okay, cool.
Fantastic.
How was that?
That works out pretty well, man. I was hoping you'd make some mistakes. So we had some bloopers.
Oh, I'm sure you'll find something to put on there, Dave.
Yeah, there'll be plenty later.
Let me pause.
Let's just hope it doesn't involve too much blood. No cut fingers, hopefully. But
no cut fingers. No. Oh,